This is Crow Inquisitors, and we are here for the last time, at least for season 1 of Crow Inquisitors, to talk about a behind-the-scenes thing. So the last thing I wanted to do for these kind of GM specific behind-the-scenes things that we've been doing these last several episodes is talk about the secrets of season 1. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I mean, yeah, this is kind of what this is, BTS. But more specifically for me, right, as a GM behind the scenes, when the game was running, there was a lot of stuff going on that the players weren't aware of. And to be fair, there was a lot going on that I wasn't 100% aware of either. So I guess the first thing I have to explain is my GMing style. I think I've talked about this a little bit, but the way that I typically GM games is I will have a pretty good general idea of the arc that I want. So for season 1 of Crow Inquisitors, we obviously knew Suicide Squad, right? A group of criminals that are being tasked by the church to uncover a heretical cult. And I knew that was going to be the situation, the scenario, and that means it would end when they get the cult, right? So that's a pretty easy arc to already have in mind. Is a good beginning, middle, and end. Not much to it'll probably be pretty straightforward. We won't necessarily get into the weeds with a bunch of other stuff. I'll know when the scenario is over. But the rest of the stuff, I improv'd. So I made a lot of characters. So I burned up a lot of characters as burning wheel characters. And gave them life paths and everything, and try to get a general sense of who these people were, why they were involved in the cult, and then other people who I knew weren't involved in the cult but were in the town. Made several characters, and then just kind of let the players roam free in Estel to see what they'll do. They have this mission, they have this task, they have to find the cult. Let's see what happens. And a lot of the events that take place in season 1 of Crow Inquisitors are pretty improv, but they're, my style of improv with something like this is very prop heavy, as it were, right? So I take a list of things. I'm like, okay, I know these characters exist. I know how they act. I know this is the scenario and this is what's going on. I know I want to play with these themes. And I'll have all those things in the back of my mind the whole time we are playing. And so lots of things that I can grab while improving, right, to help whatever scene I need to run next. But in the process, right, I created a series of questions for myself. This is another thing that I do when I'm playing a game like this, especially in a season like this, where it's gonna have a beginning, middle, and end. What I'll do is I will spend the first several episodes asking lots of questions. Right, I'll put a clue in the way of the party. I'll give them something that is mysterious and confusing, and I won't know the answer yet myself either. Right, I'll ask the question to them proverbially by having the abbess suddenly, for some reason, she's making speeches. I wonder why that is. Who knows? She might be involved in the cult. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Obviously, that was a red herring, right? She wasn't part of the cult at all. But that's the sort of stuff I'll do. And when I said those things, right, when I gave the abbess is preaching in the town square, and that's frowned upon. I didn't 100% know she wasn't involved in the cult, but it was pretty safe to say that she probably wasn't. Mainly because it was so obvious, right? I gave them this obvious red herring right off the bat to see where it would go. And I thought it went wonderfully and led to some really interesting town politics stuff that they had to deal with. Right, those are the sorts of questions that I'll ask as ask the players as the GM. What if the abbess is involved? Here's a clue that seems to point in that direction. How about you see if you can find the answer to that? And I spend the first half of an arc asking lots of questions. And then I'll sit down and I'll, listen back through the episodes And I'll be like, okay, here are the questions I've asked. Here are the promises I've made, right? Here are the things I've hinted at, the guns I put on the mantelpiece, so to speak, using Chekhov's gun as a literary tool. Right? What have I emphasized? What have I talked about a lot, but we haven't seen on screen yet? Those sorts of things. And then I'll actually answer those questions for myself, right? And that's what I did towards the latter episodes of this game. I sat down and I said, okay, so we know all this stuff is going on. Here are the questions that I've asked. I need to make sure I have answers for all of these things so that we have a satisfying ending, right? And that's typically how I write stories generally, whether or not it's a role-playing game scenario or a book or whatever else. I will improv a lot at the beginning, and then I will sit down, heavily analyze what I did in the first half, and then I will figure out what the ending is going to look like. And so what I want to do right now is I want to kind of go through some of those pieces that maybe aren't 100% obvious. And I definitely talked to the players about this afterwards. When we didn't do stuff in recording, but a lot of it's a little bit more subtle as to the answers. If you're paying attention, you should be able to figure out the clues for yourself. But I wanted to talk about the sort of stuff that was happening behind the scenes that I ended up having to find answers for. So I just have a list here. I don't know if these are particularly in chronological order, but we'll see. Hopefully it makes sense the order I have them in here. The first thing, right? End of episode 2. The players get to the town. They get to Estel, and there's a cloaked figure, right? That Theo doesn't see. But we have the shot of, right, Theo like asking around about the cult, and have you heard of anybody who's against the church? And then the last shot we had of the episode was like a cloaked figure in the distance that no one sees, suddenly like look at Theo and then disappear mysteriously. I did not know who that was when I, initially had that figure approach. That was a question I asked the players and myself. Who is this person? I didn't know. But I did figure out by the end that it was Legar or Leggard. We call him Leggard in episode 9, and then I think I rethink the name because it just seems weird. It sounds weird, and I kind of try to make it like weirdly fancy. It's still spelled the same, but I say Legar instead of Leggard. Either pronunciation works, honestly. At this point, I don't really particularly care myself. But that guy, the red-headed assassin from the north, who's working with the Order and ends up tries to kill those women who were infected with the smoke disease. He's that cloaked figure. So he had come. Leggard, right, had been in Estel probably for like a week when the players get there. And he had been called in late to what the Order was doing, what Min and the Abbess were doing, Min and Aegea. And he was kind of scouting around the town, and he got whiff of what was going on with the players, and was kind of, went to the Abbess and Min at that point, and they started their plans behind the scenes, because they figured it. They realized, oh, the keys have arrived. So that was Leggard / Legar the whole time. The cult attacking the Abbey. So when, obviously we initially have the Abbey as the red herring and the Abbess as the red herring, like, oh, they're the cult the whole time. Oh no. And obviously that's a red herring because the cult attacks them instead, right? So once they figure out who attacked the Abbey and they're like, oh yeah, this is actually the cult, and Dellen's obviously been chasing them and then chases them to the Abbey, we realize that the Abbey is actually the victims in this scenario. The Abbess is the victim. Though she is obviously guilty of other stuff, as we learn later. But I wanted to make a quick note about that. The cult attacked the Abbey because they were getting back at the church. And I think Dellen mentions this in episode 10, which is coming up here. But I wanted to make it clear, because it probably would have been to the characters, more so than maybe an audience perspective, that the cult was attacking the Abbey as part of like a religious clash, right? For whatever reason, Frinta decided my group needs to get back at the church. Maybe they didn't like what the Abbess was saying in the public square, and they decided to attack the Abbey and get back at them that way. The strange symbols drawn on the walls of the mayor's compound were drawn by the cult. in a rather pointless vandalism to spread their symbols throughout the town. So when Dellen's investigating the mayor specifically, he finds this symbol, and at first I didn't know particularly who had drawn it, but I knew that I knew that the cult had drawn it, but I didn't know at that point whether or not the mayor was part of the cult or part of something else. And so, again, that's a question I asked myself, but ultimately it doesn't make sense, and I think I answered this question pretty quickly for myself. If the mayor points out to Dellen a symbol he himself had drawn, so I thought it was a pretty safe bet to say that was not him. Continuing with Dellen's investigation, the group that went to the church and talked with Father Thomas was indeed some of the cult, and a group of the cult, and they went there, and I think I pretty much knew what was happening along the same time I said this to Dellen and like explained. I think I already knew what I was going for, but I think the thing that was going on there is that a few of the members of the cult went to the church and were asking him questions to kind of subtly mock him, right? So asking him questions about doctrine and destiny and fate, in a way that Father Thomas took to be like, oh, they're asking me questions about their lives and their vocations and what they should do with their lives and all that stuff. And as a member of the clergy, he was humoring them, but they were basically more or less trying to get him to slip up and make some sort of, in their minds, doctrinal error during that conversation. Basically, yeah, just to mock him. But then, the youth, right? So Dellen talks to Father Thomas, and he learns from that there is a youth involved in a young man involved in this group that talked to him, and that was involved in some petty theft that happened earlier. Right? The cult used that young man who was involved with these other younglings, younger dudes, younger boys in Estill, and they used them to basically rob the armory and pose it as petty theft by high-ranking, by children of high-ranking members of the community, so they could get away with it. And then suddenly, oh no, I guess a few of the weapons just mysteriously are never found again, and the cult gets them. So that was the cult using them. The cultist also, the one thing that I noticed listening back through the episodes and editing them and stuff is Dellen really doesn't, I think, get what happened with the boats, and by extension, obviously David. Right, my intention with the cult like taking the boats in episode 4.5 and like rowing them up the river is so that they would, park the boats near the cliffs, climb up the cliffs, and attack the Abbey without having to go over the bridge. So, sneak attack the Abbey is the idea there. But for some reason, Dellen always had it in his mind, I think until the end of the season, really, just like that they had taken off, that like members of the cult had just left. But no, like they were on the boats for a specific purpose, and it was to get to the Abbey. And so they were all there. So no one like escaped with a boat. The mayor and Liren, the master of the house, were unaware of the cult activity, but were in cahoots with Achia Min and later Legard in their quest. So when Achia contacted the two of them, so when Achia arrived in Estill and was given her new positions through the machinations of the order, she contacted the two of them, the mayor and Liren, and brought them into the fold. And so, that obviously that had been going on for some time. The hints that are in the mayor's diary are along those lines, right? That was what I was trying to hint at, is that the mayor joined the order, or at the very least is working with the order. It is still unclear by the end of the season what exactly was going on there. But yeah, so he was never involved in the cult stuff, which makes sense because he had symbols drawn on his quarters, and they were trying to, as Yuma points out, like we were trying to do this all under his nose the whole time. So Mayor and Liren aren't involved with that, but they were involved with the stuff with the order, and that was kind of my intention with doing the stuff with the order, right? With this mysterious third group, that we have the Inquisitors, the cult, and the order. all involved in Estel right now. And that was kind of my intention, right? I wanted, after they caught the cult in episode 5, I was like, I want to hint at the fact that there may be more cult members that they haven't dealt with yet, because there's obviously something else going on. Like, what's going on with this random hawk that comes out of nowhere and grabs this weird mirror amulet thing from Antonius? What's up with the hints about a ritual, right? And so I wanted to kind of give the impression that there was more cult stuff, but when in reality there was a third group, and that was kind of the final reveal of the season was, oh no, it's actually this international organization, secret organization that spans the whole world, and there's fate and destiny and prophecies and what's going on here. There's something bigger than just cults, right? And that would lead to the rest of the show, continuing on into later seasons as kind of the general cosmological arc, the overarching thing that was happening. So, and speaking of the Falcon, the Falcon that comes and grabs that mirror amulet thing from Antonius. Right. So that was Legard, as he says, who sent that Falcon, to go grab it. So basically what happened, right, is Legard was about to visit, the mayor, to receive that mirror, right, when Kantarius showed up and to try to kill the mayor. And so that he got involved with all that. And so, Legard couldn't actually get the mirror. But he did manage to secretly steal the staff during the commotion, right? And I don't think I ever have revealed who exactly was involved in taking the staff. I implied that obviously, the order got the staff, but it was Legard himself who was basically infiltrating. He was pretending to be, like a member of those mercenaries during that commotion, because he had showed up to go visit with the mayor, to receive the mirror, and that's when Kantarius showed up. But he still didn't know where the mirror was being hidden, right? And so, he couldn't find it until later, when he touched base with the abbess and made a guess, because the mayor and Lirin were both in prison, basically he sent the Falcon to go get it, on a guess from the abbess. One other note about that Falcon: it is actually an animal that has been awakened using the physical discipline. I don't think anyone knows what happened to that Falcon. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Who knows? I mean, I don't even know what happened to that Falcon. But I did realize that myself. I was like, oh yeah, because I knew it was like an awakened intelligent animal. But we never find out what happens to it. So, I guess he's still out there somewhere. But, yeah, that is, I think, the majority of the secrets that were kind of going on behind the scenes. There are still many more secrets to come, as we continue with Crow Inquisitors beyond season 1. There will be a lot of other stuff, and a lot of questions that were asked in this season that were never answered, and then might be answered in the future. We will be taking a break from Crow Inquisitors after, this next episode releases, episode 10, which will tie up and end season 1 of Crow Inquisitors. It's a monumental task to put all of this together. And I have a blast doing it. But sometimes it's just, it takes so much. And, I'm happy to be able to, get it done basically in a year. Right? Like I started releasing this at the beginning of January, at the beginning of 2021, and I'm releasing it, at the end, hopefully, if I release everything on time here, at the end of 2021, before January, at the end of December here. And, but I'm happy. It took a while, but I'm happy with the way it turned out. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I'm excited to release all the music that I've been working on, and put in the episode, like, for people to buy, and listen to just on Spotify and stuff like that. But Crow Inquisitors is not over. I will be taking a break from it because it's a lot, but we will be continuing, and there will be more to come in this world, in the Burning Wheel, and of Crow Inquisitors in the future. But for now, I will go ahead and sign off here, and tomorrow you can expect the final episode of season 1 of Crow Inquisitors, episode 10. Thanks for listening, guys.